So it's my understanding that this is your first feature film.
Yes.
And I think one of the questions I would have is, why was your choice to film in black and white in such a topic that is so non-black and white?
Well, because I do a lot of things. That's my brand. If you guys know my production company, I usually do things in black and white. But I also think this is an important topic right now because I think everybody's looking at the world black and white. If you look at the political system, you look at the world, you see everybody's looking at everything black and white. Conservative, liberal, left, or everything is black and white. And so that's why I made it black and white, to strip away the information and to focus on what was important. So
I think it was a great choice, personally. Thanks. So what inspired you to take on such a meaty topic?
this is always a complicated question for me because it's very complex with my life. I started off, when I was a young kid, I was a Roman Catholic. I grew up Roman Catholic. And when I got to be a teenager, I studied spirituality for many years. I was into New Age, I was into psychics, I was into tarot reading. I mean, I really had a belief system that I believed in extra dimensions and UFOs. And in the early 2000s, I believed that 9/11 was an inside job. I was a conspiracy theorist. So I basically would always try to find information to figure out, And then I believed there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And I remember arguing with my mom for like 3 hours about how there was weapons of mass destruction. And when I found out there wasn't, that was the first time I realized that what I thought I believed about reality wasn't true. It wasn't political. I wasn't into politics. I couldn't tell you the difference between a Democrat and a Republican. But after that, there was something after about 9/11 and studying religion and then studying what was going on in our political government at that time that I was like, what's actually going on? And I was in my 20s at the time. And I had to think about it, and I was like, okay, so I went down this rabbit hole, and that's what got me into documentary filmmaking. I wasn't into documentary, and I just kept watching. I watched Fahrenheit 9/11, which totally just woke me up out of this, like, what is this? And when I saw Errol Morris's Fog of War, which is about the Vietnam War, now that's before my generation, but I had to understand this country and where we came from, and I realized there was a whole other generation before me that had gone through these problems and these processes, and here we are now, in our day and age. I'm like, did we learn anything? Like, did we learn anything from history? So I had to study history. So I went down a rabbit hole, and as I started to do that, I realized almost everything I believed about reality, whether it was psychic abilities, whether it was God, everything I did, I questioned. And I started to realize everything I thought that I believed about it wasn't true. And I realized once just like in the cave, when you came out of the cave and you started to see the world for what it is, most people know me. I challenge everything, I really do. And I'm pretty outspoken, believe me. But I don't just do it to do it. It's like that's how you feel. You walk outside of the cave and you're like, wow. And you think that if you present these facts to people, they'd want to free themselves from it. But it's hard. It's really hard. I mean, we live in Sedona. I mean, people know how much I'm out there fighting for this. And it's hard when you know after a while, when you question it, that it may not be true. And so that's why I had to make the film. It really was about Plato, philosopher Plato, allegory of the cave. It's how do we understand truth? How do we know and what we believe is to be true? And so I take this stuff very, very seriously, and that's why I felt like we had to make a film about it.
Oh, you want to? How do I follow that? I'm a psych major, so basically, as soon as he said, "I want to do this about the psychology of belief," I was like, "Okay, I'm all in." I myself, my background was I was raised in a Mormon household. I ran away from that religion when I was about 12 or 13. I turned away from it. And then I myself also believed in psychic abilities. And when he and I met, it was like I was kind of coming out of that. I think we both were, but we still had this little hint of, it was meant to be. This is why we're together. And there were all these little synchronicities. And so there was like this holding on still of that. And then slowly, the more we questioned and the more we realized that, okay, no, actually the reason why we're together is because we're extremely compatible and we have all these things in common. And there was an actual logical side to it outside of the underlying mechanisms. And so the more that he's taught me how to question more, the more I realized when he brought the film to my attention, I was like, no, this has to be made. This is what we have to do. So
Fascinating. Shall we open up to audience questions now?
Absolutely.
Who has a question? In the back.
Hi. Over here. Oh.
Sorry, it's hard to see you guys.
Can you
Yeah, I can. Thank you.
Now, I really appreciate the movie. I appreciate the content. One of the things that's really interesting that you didn't touch, which I think I'm sure is going to be a second one, is the relationship between belief system and expectations.
Oh.
Because when you create a belief system, the belief system creates values, attitude, and expectations. There's no problem with that. But then we believe that our life is happy if we meet the expectations. Now, if the beliefs are incorrect, obviously your expectation will fail. And then we believe it's us. So there's a whole genre about the development of that system, the relationship between belief system, expectations, and quality of life. Did you have any insight regarding that?
Well, I also think expectations also is what causes a lot of depression in society. We put these false expectations and beliefs on ourselves and what we perceive about reality, and I think we've been doing that for a very long time. I think we've been conditioned by political systems, media systems, religious systems for us to say this is the standard that we should be living, and when we don't live up to it with our friends and our family, we feel like shit, we feel like we're not good enough, we don't feel like we're active people in society. We see these people in the tabloids, you know, and people on Instagram, we're like, oh, that's my life, it's all happy-go-lucky, but behind the scenes, I think people are genuinely suffering. I think behind all of this masks that we wear that people are genuinely suffering, and that's why I question it. So my expectations may be different than somebody else's, but that's why I'm fighting so hard, because I realize how much harm a lot of belief systems have. Not just religious, but your own belief of what you think about reality, how you treat your family and friends and the people that are around you. I think it's important, you know. So I think belief and expectation doesn't have to just do with religion. That's why I brought politics up. Look at right now. I started this film 3 years ago. I didn't know this was going to happen right now. And now I'm even more pissed off. So, you know, I'm sorry. I think we could do better. I genuinely do. And it takes critical thinking to do that. We didn't put a man on the moon by guessing and rubbing voodoo dolls to get the man on the moon. We studied the reality and we had an expectation what we wanted, right? John F. Kennedy said, hey, we're going to the moon. Where'd that country go? I didn't get to have that country. You know, maybe you guys did, but I didn't. You know, where's our Martin Luther King? So, yeah, there's expectations, and I'm challenging those expectations right now. So, yeah.
We appreciate that.
I don't have anything.
So, yeah, I enjoyed it very much over here. I had a couple of thoughts. One is more a comment than anything else, but one of the fellows was talking about the subconscious mind, which perhaps is larger than the conscious mind. And I had the thought of, well, what if the conscious mind is the shadow on the wall and it's the subconscious mind actually that is the real one and the truth? But the other thing that has been bothering me a little more, not about the film, but it almost seems like science is getting infiltrated too, because I started thinking about different studies, you know, like the drug companies and nutrition and the dairy industry. And there was a time when the studies were inviolate and medical journals wouldn't touch them unless they were pure. And today there probably isn't a study that isn't funded by one side or the other. And they're all appearing in the medical journals now. And you find that sort of seeping into science too. I suppose truth will out, and critical thinking is the answer there too, but it's troublesome to me. And I was just wondering if anybody gave any thought to that or if you ran into it.
In in regards to, you know, what we learned from the film, I don't remember really talking about that with any of them, talking about the corruption that does take place in science. And you're absolutely right. That happens all the time. And I think a lot of what happens these days is everyone, because there's a huge and tremendous amount of pressure on scientists to be published in order to make a name for themselves. And so what you're seeing is you'll see a lot of like pop psychology things come out. And every other week there's a study for this and a study for that. But if you're a good skeptic and you're a critical thinker, what you'll do is you'll stop and you'll say, okay, well, let me go take a look at this study. And is there anything else that maybe contradicts it? And so when you do that and when you learn to do that, you find that, okay, some of these studies over here, they're backed by, you know, big pharma, or you know, you follow the money trail is what I hear a lot. And it's true in a lot of cases. But the best thing about science is that another scientist can come along and try to replicate that study. And if they find out that, hey, whatever they found over here isn't actually true, it completely eradicates that other study and it goes away. And so I think that's the one thing that we do need to focus on in regards to all of these, things that take place in the science community. Just keep remembering that there's always going to be somebody out there who can try to replicate it. And if they can't replicate it, then it's no good anyway.
I try to tell people science isn't a religion, okay? It's a process, and anyone can abuse a process, right? Like it took science for nuclear bombs to happen, right? It took science to create F-16s, and I mean, it's science. It's just what are you going to do with that science is really what it is. We're all immune to being corrupted by cognitive, huh? No, nobody's immune, not even me, believe me. I mean, that's how easy we get caught up in that. So I hold actually a higher standard to scientists than I do even religion, spirituality, whatever. When I find there's a scientist being dishonest and being corrupted and whatever else, that makes me more mad than anything else because you know the process and you're doing it for your own gain and benefit. But guess what? Some guy's going to come up behind you and do a study, and multiple people are going to do studies and check your ass and make sure you're doing your actual science right. And I hold those guys to a higher standard. I mean, we should hold science to a higher standard. There's nothing wrong with debating. Thank you. There's nothing wrong with debating. There's nothing wrong with even having a political debate. But if we're not going to gain any progress in this debate and not have any conversations about it, well, what do you expect? This is what we get. This is a society that we actually live in. So.
What else you got?
Hi. Hello. Thank you so much for making this film.
Thank you for watching it.
Thank you for helping us to think and giving us directions how to think. I would like to ask, how did you choose these people to interview and to present in your film?
So Michael Shermer, who's in here, I'm a huge fan. If there's one thing I recommend to anybody is watch him when he debates people. First off, he's a great author. He writes, read the book, The Believing Brain. A lot of this is in it. And his TED Talk. So if you guys watch his TED Talk from about 4 or 5 years ago, I think it's even more than that now. He's got a really great TED Talk that he does. And I've been a fan of Michael Shermer for a long time. He's been on many shows. And he was on NBC one time debating, it was him and Sam Harris debating Deepak Chopra and Gene Houston. And yeah, no, he's debated all these people and gone out there. And if you watch the debates, and that's what I watch a lot of. I watch college debates. I watch a lot of religious debates I'm not just talking about people just arguing with us. I'm talking about having a real conversation. And when you start to see the facts being presented, you start to realize some of this isn't adding up. And I hate to say it, but a lot of the spiritual religion side couldn't hold up to most of the data and the facts. Peter Boghossian, like he said, he worries about being blunt. I don't know if you guys remember, he was talking about being blunt and forthright. That's what I like about him because we're both the same. I pretty much speak how I feel. But he also says you've got to be engaged in civil conversation with people. You've got to take some time to listen to another person's point of view every once in a while. And people that know me know that. I will tell you if I don't like you, I don't give a shit, okay? But if you have a valid opinion and you have a different point of view and you're being respectful, I'll hear it. I'll listen to you. I'm not going to treat you like crap for whatever political party you are, what you believe. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get people to think. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I brought him in there. And just to wrap up real quick, Caleb Black, he has a really great TED Talk too. We're actually going to go out to Oklahoma to show the film over at University of Oklahoma. He's got a TED Talk. And then, who else is in my film? Oh, Jennifer Whitson. Yeah.
Who was on Through the Wormhole.
Oh, yeah, Jennifer Whitson. If you guys ever saw the show Through the Wormhole, she was actually on there. Morgan Freeman and all them did a special with her talking about uncertainty and how we see patterns in things. And then finally, Chad Woodruff is out at Northern Arizona University. I just happened to run into him at a skeptics conference out there. And he was talking about the psychology of why people believed in the sun god Ra and how we went from having all these other different beliefs to, why we don't believe in them now. So I actually have 4 more other people I interviewed in the film that I didn't put in the film. I'm already going to make an extended version, but it's actually people from the opposite side. I interviewed one of my good friends, Betsy Chaucy. She's one of the co-directors of a film called What the Bleep Do We Know? I don't know if you guys have ever seen that film. Yeah, we're really good friends with her. I interviewed her in the film. I interviewed Joe Dispenza, who was actually in the film. So I actually interviewed believers. But I didn't have time and I didn't have the budget to put it for this. But guess what? When we release it, we're going to make an extended version with the other people. Because I actually sit down and I talk to them about their beliefs and why they believe. And just to show that I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm trying to listen to what people are trying to actually say. So.
Hey guys, I loved it. That was a fantastic job. Absolutely great. Nice haircut, Ben.
Yay! I don't know if y'all noticed,
And
but
yeah, The score, I thought the score was fantastic. So I'm not really talking about content here, but the musical score, and I noticed that it went through the whole thing. I think there was very few moments where it wasn't kind of guiding the dialogue. Can you talk a little bit about that? Did you do the score?
Yeah.
Good job, man.
He created that.
That's what I did. I originally hired a composer, but I couldn't afford him. So I was like, I got to do something. So I decided, before I was a filmmaker, I was a musician. So I decided I would score the entire film. I did it for my short film, A Virus Called Fear 2, but I like eclectic kind of haunting kind of, stuff. And that's why I scored the entire project myself. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for the content of the film. It was very interesting. For years, I've wanted to write a book about that very subject. Mesa, you'll appreciate this. I was born and raised Mormon, and my dad was a bishop twice over.
Oh my gosh.
My mom and dad had 9 kids. 6 of the 9 of us have left. And it was really interesting because part of my experience is of what I was going to really point out was a lot of people don't change their belief system because of self-preservation.
Yes.
I was happy to be out. My sister, just older than me, she was really upset. She was angry for years because she dedicated so much of her time reading scriptures and she served a mission and blah, blah, blah. And then a friend of mine, he was suicidal because he was so devoted his whole life. His psyche couldn't handle that he believed he was living a lie all those years, so he was suicidal. And then a brother of mine couldn't come out per se with his belief of change until my mom died a couple of years ago. So I think it takes a lot of courage for a lot of people when they realize the impact or the backlash of their tribe or their family, because they can find themselves alone. And I have to be true to myself, and that's just how I've been since I was a little girl, even if I'm alone. I would rather be alone wandering the earth in joy and delight and wonderment than being comfortable with delusion of company.
Yep.
I don't care about the company.
We live in Sedona.
Well, and that's partly why I moved to Sedona,
We're
because I'm
accepted.
free to be
Come on
more
now.
free to
We have
be
a real-
me.
Yeah, we have a lot of good friends here, though, which is a good thing. And you can have a form of exclusion. And that's the hardest part for a lot of atheists and a lot of skeptics when they come out is that you start to lose your social structure. And that's why I put the Ash experiment in the social psychology. Because when the people around you start thinking the way that they do, and you become isolated. Now, we need groups to survive. We've had to for thousands of years. The reason why people feel alone and they feel bad that they're alone, like they feel like crap and don't know why, that's your biological mind telling you you need to be part of a group. Now, that would have helped us out thousands of years ago, because you had to survive. You had to depend on other people. You still do. But the reason why you're afraid to be alone is because biologically it's that. So when you're ostracized from your group, from your church, from your friends, from your family, and believe me, we've gone through it. It's hard. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot to just keep. But you know what? When you start, just like walking out of the cave, I hate to sound like The Matrix, but it's one of my favorite movies. You take the red pill or the blue pill, right? The allegory of the cave from The Matrix is actually based off of Plato's allegory. Okay? That whole film is a philosophical film. You have a choice. You can go back into the Matrix and people feel comfortable being in the Matrix, right? Or you say, I want to know the truth. And I'm willing to question what it is, but you have to make that decision. No one else can make it for you. So.
Well, right. So I wanted to add that I had the conversation with my mom before she passed because it really broke her heart that, she's worried about her grandchildren's salvation, etc. She wants us to come back to church even if that's not what we want. I totally honor and respect that her doing that religion works for her. Mm-hmm. I don't have any judgment on that. If that works for her or whatever anybody's belief works for them, that's fine. I'm grateful that they have something that gives them a sense of security. Just be happy for me and let me go. You gave life to me. Let me live it, please. Mm-hmm. So that's the gift, the best gift I can give my 5 children. Is I gave them life. Let them live it however they want.
Good for you. And I appreciate you taking the time to open up and talk about that with us. I mean, in terms of what happened to me, I got kind of lucky. I had hippie parents who told me to question everything. My mother was constantly telling me question everything. She walked away from the church now because she was a drug addict, and I was raised mostly by my grandmother, who was, hardcore fundamental Mormon. She instilled in me, no, this is what you need to be good. This is what I had to do to be good. And I found that, well, I was kind of getting away with things, and I was still considered good. So through process of elimination, I realized, okay, so maybe I don't really have to go to church anymore. And I kind of just pulled myself away from it. She was extremely disappointed in me, and that remained a point of contention up until she died. But it is one of those things where my family now, my parents have passed away, my grandmother has passed away, so my remaining family, who is still Mormon, does not speak to me. They have ostracized me. They have cut me off because they don't agree with, I don't know what, my being, who I am. So thank you for doing what you're doing with your children. I'm trying to do the same thing with my daughter.
Yeah, it is hard. We've lost a lot of friends and family because of it, honestly. Yeah, it's been tough.
So I loved the movie. I thought the score was beautiful, and it was visually beautiful, let alone the content was really spectacular.
Thank you.
My favorite thing about the two of you is your innate, authentic ability to self-critique your behavior and your thoughts. And I really value that. And we've got beliefs as couples that differ, our beliefs, but there's always been mutual respect and dialogue between us. But I think we have lost the ability, especially in this political climate, to disagree with each other. And I think that is really sad. And I also had an eye-opening experience. I was a debater. And in college, we had to pick kind of inflamed topics. And I'm very pro-choice, so I picked that topic. But the crux of the matter was we had to debate the opposite side. And so you are visually ingrained in a belief system that there are facts for the other side. And I was now debating something I didn't believe in, but I won. For reasons that had nothing to do with my beliefs and everything to do with charisma and vocabulary and intelligence. And I learned a valuable lesson that you don't have to agree to speak about things. And I think your film really beautifully showed that, so I'm grateful.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad that you did that, because the one thing, ask Mesa, she knows, I watch a lot of things that are totally opposite than what I think. I watch a lot of stuff on religion and politics all the time because I don't know. I could be wrong. Everything I'm presenting in this film, or me, I could be wrong right now 10 years from now. I'm making the claim like he said, I don't know, and neither does anybody else. So let's ask the hard questions. That's all I'm trying to say. So thank you.
We have time for one more question. A lady back here has been waiting.
Hi. You say that you interviewed believers, but you didn't include them in the film. How do we know that that wasn't just your brain excluding things that do not fit into its reality?
Because I actually used to believe everything that these people believed, and actually I know them personally. So because the whole point of it at the very beginning was I wanted to show both sides of it. But I realized if I had to show the core side of it, I had to make the point I'm trying to make about it. Does that make sense? I had to make a choice at some point.
No, it doesn't make sense. You showed one side. You took information on both sides, but you only showed one side.
Right, and a lot of that had to do with time and money. Unfortunately...
And how do we know that's not your brain saying it had to do with time and money?
Oh, I understand.
It could be. It's a cognitive bias. I'm having a perception. This is my point of view that I'm trying to present to you. It is. And I've always been honest about who I am in my film. I said, this is my point of view, right? But again, I don't watch religious films like God's Not Dead, and I don't see them giving a fair share to atheists or skeptics either. So,
yeah, I don't have anything else to add. I appreciate the comment. Anything else? Anybody else?
I'd like to just add one more thing. We don't have time for any more questions. I'm sorry. You might be able to talk to them later on. But Brenna Malloy, who did the opening short, Rocket, who won the Oscar for Best Student Short Film. You can actually see her accepting her award. They do the student awards early, so she's already received her award. You can see a video of her on YouTube if you just Google Brenna Malloy or Rocket Oscar, it'll all come up. And one of the things that she mentioned in there when she was accepting her award, I found really fascinating and sweet and apropos for this moment. And she talked about how filmmaking, one of the spectacular things about that is having the ability to bring a bunch of people into a room who may be lonely. And once you're in this room and you're sharing this experience, you're no longer lonely. And I think this film really did that for us. Thank you very much.
And thank you guys for being open-minded to watch it. I really do appreciate you guys coming out. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.